Hey everybody, good evening. Welcome back to Casey's Treasure Corner. Before we get into the story tonight, I just wanted to mention to you guys, and I'm sure you're well aware, I'm not your everyday treasure hunter. I'm not out there on the beach just hunting coins and stuff like that. All my life, I've been going after big treasures, big locations, lost cities, lost temples, lost tunnel systems, old mine sites. I mean, really, do a lot of research and homework. I have a lot of technology available to me, satellite technologies, as well as ground equipment, radars, ERT, seismic, the whole gamut of stuff. Um, and I've been pretty fortunate. I've been able to work with a lot of cool people on a lot of amazing projects and collaborate with people about different technologies and governments and all different types of people. Um, and I do have to say, I mean, there are a ton of just amazing sites out there to get done. Some just more amazing than others. All of them priceless in my mind as far as, the history that's involved. But more so that, every time we actually go out and do a treasure, these things cost time and money. And every time you want to go and do a project right, it costs a couple $1,000,000 to do it right from A to B and be done with it, not run out of money along the way and all that happy jazz. That cost is, never in the treasure hunter's pocket. We don't have 4 or 5, $6 million. So you end up working for people or getting investors involved that want the lion's share of anything that's found for putting the money out of their pocket, to take the risk. And, I've done more jobs than I can shake a stick at, then that's the case. I'm either hired as a contractor to do the work or partnered up with these people and getting a piece of the pie when it comes out. And normally it runs out of money if you're going the piece of the pie route, and shoestring budget takes forever. So you go the deep pockets route, and that guy wants 90% and he takes 90%. So anything that's found, you get your little cut, you get paid, and 90% of that treasure never gets shared with anybody else. That just got to stop. The world, needs to see these treasures. The Yamashita treasure is no different. The Japanese plundered that treasure from China, and China, for 10,000 years, the dynasties plundered it from the world on their end. So whose treasure is it? It's all of our treasure, and we should all get to see the benefit from it. Especially the Philippines. There's just so much treasure buried there that it's insurmountable. And the story that we've all been told, just like every other story, is, riddled with Swiss cheese holes about the truth, the pieces, parts that are missing. But even for my sake, we've dug pretty deep. And we understand where all this gold came from and how much there really is out there. And in other locations, there's just treasures galore, not only in the monetary value, but in the historical aspects and information that predates Bibles and any written text of humanity. I mean, these tablets are just incredible. And the stories that they tell do not match up to the Bible. They do not match up to all the history that's taught, well, that was taught to me in high school or any other school for that matter. So that's for another day. Tonight's story is pretty amazing, though. I've been working with my friend Bill Spann and Captain Carl Fismer, Charles Hamilton, on a location that is a 2,000-year-old city based in Costa Rica, and a young woman that was, just a young woman on the island at one point in time back in the 40s, I would assume. Edgar Cayce had a vision that this woman, he needed to go find this woman and bring her to this specific location on that island. And he told her, he did go there and he did find the woman, and he brought her to the location and told her that she was the chosen one to protect a temple that was located about 800 feet down on this property, and that her and her family were to homestead this land, and they were to dig in this very specific location that they denoted, and that he was going to send a watcher to keep an eye on her. And with that, a shaman type man from the local village became her go-between. And when Edgar Cayce left, he left the shaman behind, and the shaman would, kind of direct them in their digging efforts. And over the years, they did homestead the property, and her family put a shaft in where they told them to go, and 20, 30 feet down the shaft, they, excuse me, struck a bronze coin from 612 AD, which was pretty incredible. It's a pretty old coin. So as they further went down, another 10 or 15 feet, they came across this golden artifact, about 1.5 pounds worth of gold, shaping into an object that was possibly Mayan, Incan, or Aztec in nature. It had that style of craftsmanship. And Carl only got to see a black and white photo of it, and it was sold off, unfortunately, to keep the digging operation going and the family fed and so on and so forth. So the family keeps digging, and they're getting down into the 100-foot level, and they get into a location that is like a spiral staircase, only it's a spiral rampway. And according to Captain Carl Fismer, he says that as he enters this area, it's like blocks of stone that create the archway and the tunnel ceiling, and they are so tight together and so compact, and that the floor is so smooth and shiny like a granite countertop that he's just amazed what he's seeing. He's looking at something that's built with purpose and certainly is resembling the kind of craftsmanship you're seeing in Peru or in Pumapunku or Machu Picchu. He's convinced that, this type of construction just does not belong here. And what is it doing here? What are these artifacts doing here? The woman goes on to say that the shaman and both Edgar Cayce had told her that in this temple that's located under this location, there was 3 priests that guarded the temple for the past, 2,000 years ago, but they were at about 500 years old of being the caretakers of the temple, and that the temple held a very special water source that would heal the human body and provide longevity to the human lifespan, almost like the fountain of youth. And so they were sent there to protect it, and according to their folklore, Phoenicians and Romans and Chinese and all sorts of people were coming there tithing gifts to get some of this water to bring back to their rulers and kings throughout history. And these priests had I guess you would call it what's the word I'm looking for? Sorry. Premonition that the Spanish would be showing up to, basically steal all their gold and all the offerings that they had stored in this location, and that they would exploit this water. And that ground needed to be closed up, and the temple needed to be buried under this hillside, and in waits and hopes for this woman to come back and, excavate it. So here it comes 2,000 years down the road, and the woman is chosen by Edgar Cayce, of all people, as he has a premonition to send her there and to recover this location to share it with the world. So, Captain Carl Fismer, he starts going down that shaft or this rampway, and they get down to the bottom, and it's not safe enough for them to go any further. In front of them is another shaft that's about 8 foot round, and their lights can't penetrate down. The car light that they had attached to this battery just didn't do it any good. And he said when you threw a little pebble off of there, you couldn't hear it hit anything, so which is intriguing, probably a couple hundred feet deep. And accordingly, they had dug down about 500 feet, and there was about 800 feet to the top of the temple. So it could have been a 300-foot shaft for sure. But so they retreated to the surface, and the older lady had a nice dinner or lunch waiting for them, and they sat down to lunch. And she went on to say that the shaman would come back periodically and tell them, where they needed to keep digging to, and how far they needed to go. But she had pretty much said that, without Carl's help and Charles Hamilton, that they wouldn't be able to proceed. So at that point in time, they weren't really prepared to actually finance the dig. So they've been kind of giving them some money and holding them off until the day comes that we can actually go back there and get it done. And I was invited onto this project to actually go and do the satellite work and do some scan work around this mountainside to see whether we could figure out exactly where the other entrance to this temple system might have been. But of course, money and time are always the problem. So right now, as I speak these words, we have an investor that's interested, and he's looking to do this as a humanitarian effort. He's not looking for his return on investment as much as, seeing this place and exposing it. And if there is some healing water in there, I'll tell you what, we could all use a couple gallons. Purportedly from their story, they said that Ponce de Leon came through, and the Spanish did come, and they sent the Spanish to the north looking, just telling them anywhere but here for gold. And they sent Ponce de Leon, up to the north as well. And he ends up coming to Florida and staking the Fountain of Youth there. And maybe all along he was looking for the Fountain of Youth, and it was right there in Costa Rica, and they just sent him on his way. Either way, it's a funny story because Carl, when he leaves the lady's house and he's heading back to, got a day to kill before he gets back on a plane, and he's walking around town, and a woman comes up to him, and she's she looks about 25 or 30, and she walks right up to Carl in the street and says that he was here as the chosen one. And she starts to explain, the whole reason why he's here, and goes through the whole story about the woman and, that the grandma that he had met over there, that she was 160 years old, and he's just kind of looking at her like, kind of cockeyed. He doesn't really know if he's, that she's a nut job or not. But he continues to listen. And, finally she relates to him that, he is the chosen one according to the shaman, and that he would be back to help claim the treasure and the water for the people. And here we are, in this day and age now. This is, I think that his last visit was 2015. And here we are in 2022 making plans to get back in there and restart up this excavation and finish this job. So I'll keep you guys informed of what happens. It should be really interesting to see this 2,000-year-old temple, this healing water, and then all of the offerings of artifacts that people brought in exchange for some water from this temple. It's going to be unbelievable. So stay tuned. We're going to get that done, and a lot of other things to come pretty quickly here. So hope you guys have a great night. See you soon. John Casey, Casey Treasure Corner. Good night.